Hello YouTube, it is me, Raina, and I'm back, and I have officially finished Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm going to give my overall thoughts on these last few seasons 4 through 7. I'm not going to mention everything here. If you think I've missed anything or you want to add anything, put them in the comments. I'm just going to, spitball here and give you my highlights of what I enjoyed these last few seasons and didn't enjoy, because I have a lot of criticism, especially for the last season. So what I really enjoyed here was seeing the transition from high school to college, because you see now in these past 10 to 15 years when it comes to these teen dramas, they've had a lot of trouble of transitioning their characters from high school to college or to adulthood. They either do a time jump, they either get a new cast for a new generation to stay in high school, or they leave high school behind and go straight to adulthood or to college. Like, it's either or with some of these shows, and this is one of the rare shows that actually shows that transition, because Buffy is, the whole entire show is about growing up through the good and the bad. And with Buffy, unfortunately, there is a lot of bad coming her way. So I love seeing that transition of her getting in a relationship with Riley, and people may call that boring, and I understand that, but I understood what the writers were doing when they put her with Riley. She wanted some normalcy. She wanted to just, okay, I'm in college, I'm an adult, I just want to have a normal, nice relationship, and of course, it doesn't work, but he is the guy that she needed at that time and everything. And then we get with Willow and Tara. That relationship I think was fantastic. It was one of the first LGBTQ relationships on network television, I think, at the time, and that was groundbreaking for this show and for genre television in general. And so we got that great development. The addition of the character of Anya, I think, was great. At first, I was kind of iffy on her, but then once we got into her, I was like, okay, yes. And of course, the addition of Dawn, that whole entire thing, it confused me at first, to be honest. I was like, wait, because I knew Michelle Trachtenberg was in this show, and I knew she was going to play Buffy's younger sister. But I thought, since her parents were divorced, maybe Dawn lived with the dad and she comes over or whatever. Not her just to pop out of nowhere at the beginning of season 5. And I'm like, huh? No one's going to mention, I guess, okay, until they unravel the whole lore of her being the key. And I was like, okay, everything makes sense now. I was really confused at first, but they got me. So that was great. I love their relationship, and I know there's a big thing of like hating Dawn in the fandom, but you have to understand she's a young teenage girl with a lot of, really extreme emotional issues. And I think for the most part, they dealt with it in a good way. And also, of course, we're transitioning to the early 2000s still. And I think I said this in my first part of my Buffy review of season 1 through 3. Of course, there's going to be things in here that's dated when it comes to certain words and, how they interact with certain characters of color, especially in season 7 with the potentials, with the Asian potential. That was cringy, and I was like, oh, goodness, and all that stuff. So there's still that. And of course, unfortunately, it's of its time. It's the early 2000s. I remember it unfondly. But anyway, to move along from that, one of the most impacting episodes, honestly, I think of this whole entire show, was The Body, where Buffy's mother unfortunately dies. And I knew this was going to happen. I knew of this episode. It's kind of hard to stay, to be unspoiled for Buffy when you're online. But I never seen it. And even knowing what happens, I still got emotional. I still cried, and how they process grief and how they process death, and how there was like basically no music except for the theme tune in this episode. And it really got in there when it came to, her mother and how she meant so much, not only to Buffy, but to everybody in the Scooby Gang. And it was really hard to watch. And the fact that they really kind of really put it at the forefront, I think was a brave move for them to do, especially on the show that has so many fantastical elements. And of course, my favorite scene is Anya's speech about it. That caught me off guard, and I was started bawling, and it was just amazing, of course, and everything. I think it was just amazing. In season 6, people always, once again, being online, you can't stay away from spoilers from Buffy. People always say season 6 is a downer and it's not fun to watch, but I think this is one of the seasons that really try to go deep into the characters and deep into Buffy. And unfortunately, it's one of the seasons where Tara does get killed off, unfortunately. I really hated that. I mean, that's been talked about when it comes to Bury Your Gaze. You can look it up. It's there, when it comes to the unfortunate death of Tara, and then Dark Willow, and then, of course, the, Spike R-wording Buffy. That whole discourse, I'm not going to get into in this video. There's a podcast called a Buffering Podcast. They've done episodes about this particular topic when it comes to Tara, and also when it comes to the Spike and Buffy scene. We can look through that to really get into the nuances of everything that goes on with that. I think both of those choices this season was really chugging for me, and I was really enjoying it, even though it was really morose and sad. But these two things went too far. Went way too over the line of killing Tara and of Spike doing that to Buffy. And yes, we know Spike is a monster. We've seen him since season 2. We know what he's capable of. He didn't have to do that. And we knew that Buffy and Spike's relationship was toxic. We knew that. We knew all the metaphors, the house being broken down when they were doing it with each other. We got it. I just think they went way too overboard with those two things. It's like the show likes to be on the line sometimes, and then it tips over, and they're like, oh, let's tip back. Maybe we did too much. So, yeah. And as for the final season, it ended in a satisfying way. I think the first couple episodes were good. The potentials, it was really interesting to see who were the young girls, because I recognized some of those actresses, especially Felicia Day, who probably know from Geek and Sundry and everything. She has her own Twitch channel. She's, you probably obviously know her from Supernatural, but I saw her and I was like, oh, that's Felicia Day. And also Lelaine from Lizzie McGuire. And I was like, wait, does that make sense? And it did. So anyway, I think expanding the lore a little bit and kind of going deeper into the Slayer stuff, I think was a great thing to do for a last season. And the whole, thing of like all the other girls who are Slayers become powerful, and then basically why the show exists for girl power. And I love that as a sentiment. But, when it comes to storylines that falter, I wish Anya deserves so much better than that. I was disappointed in her death scene and how it was handled. It was way too quick. It happened off screen. I hated it. I'm sorry. It was not good. The whole thing with Wood, I wish was expanded on more, and I wished that he was given something of like, we understand what you're going through and you have a right to feel that way, but we got to do this. And I feel like they didn't really give him that when it came to his storyline with Spike. Spike's backstory, that whole entire thing with his mother was weird. I was uncomfortable, very interesting, but I wish it gave, I wish it gave more to him, to Principal Wood and everything. And, the whole kicking Buffy out thing, what was that episode called? I forgot. It was bad, and the potentials, I think, were really underwritten. I did not like Kennedy. I'm sorry. Tara, Tara is just everything, and I feel like that actress could not measure up to Allison the way that Amber could, when it comes to chemistry, when it comes to acting. And that's just my critique on that, of what I saw of season 7. I feel like, the main villain of the first was very interesting. It gave me a sense of untrust about certain characters, after a while, I was like, okay, let's defeat the villain. But for an ending of a show, I felt like it was satisfying to a point. There could have been more. You can kind of feel in the last season, the writers were kind of running out of steam a little bit. You could tell with, the writing choices and the character choices and the plot line. It was clearly time to end the show. And I feel like ending it right here feels right. And it feels great. And it's satisfying to, enough. So, yeah, so those are my overall thoughts on Buffy. What are your thoughts on the show as a whole? Did you enjoy the finale? What are your favorite seasons, favorite episodes, characters, moments? If I miss anything, leave them down below in the comments and by YouTube.